8 of Soup Chat. And with this, I'm just going to hand it over to my friend, Dr. Peter Finch, to get us going.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Our focus is going to be early learning.
Soup Chat.
Whoop, heard something there. All right, our focus is early learning tonight. Two wonderful guests, two superintendents that are part of the AASA early learning cohort. We'll take a moment here to get to know them. We're really going from coast to coast tonight, so this is wonderful. So we have Dr. Sharon Pepukaite from the Talbot County Public Schools in Maryland. And we have Dr. Shalene French from Caldwell School District in Idaho. I'm Peter Finch, superintendent of the West Valley School District in Yakima, Washington. And my colleague there, Chris Nesmith, is superintendent of the Elma School District, also in Washington State. So let's get to know Sharon and Shalene. Sharon, tell us about your school district and a little bit just about, you can start off, share a little about your school district and a little bit about early learning in Talbot County Public Schools.
So thanks for having me. So I am entering my third year as superintendent, 32-year educator. Done all the things, elementary teacher background, principal, assistant soup. And so for me, I just, being the elementary educator, you have kindergarten and you have pre-K in your buildings. And it wasn't until I approached a leader, let me back up, my district, 8 buildings, 4,700 students. I'm on the eastern shore of Maryland. That's where Talbot County is. I actually graduated from Talbot County Public Schools. I left, graduated, went full circle, and now I'm back as a superintendent. So early learning has always been a part of what I enjoyed seeing, but it wasn't until I joined AASA as a leader and, jumped into the early learning cohort that my magnifying glass just opened up to all things early learning. And so here I am in Talbot County Public Schools, where we are championing early learning. We have all day 4-year-olds in our schools, full day, and per Maryland Blueprint, which is an initiative we're trying to push for 3-year-olds to come into our building. So that's me in a snapshot.
That's great. I would like to call those hair club for men moments where it's like, I'm not just the educational leader, but I'm also a client.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hair club for men? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
All right. So nice intro there by Sharon from Talbot County Public Schools, Maryland. And let's move over to Shalene French, Dr. French from Caldwell School District in Idaho.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. What a great way to share, your advocacy and your belief in what we're doing. I would say I started teaching in 1996. So you can do the math. That's your math problem for the night. And it started as a teacher in a middle school mathematics, just the whole process. Assistant principal. I worked in district level human resources and then became superintendent. So I've been in Caldwell. This is year 8. And yeah, it's a great place, district about the size of Sharon's, 5,200 students. And we're just west of Boise metro area. It's a growing area. However, in the way districts are configured in Idaho, we're circled by really large landmass districts, farm ground that is being turned into housing. And we're not considered urban, but we have urban issues. When we visit with our peers around this country, we experience that. As just like Sharon, I was a girls basketball coach. And a coach knows a team is going to be great. You have to have a feeder program, right? Nobody wants a varsity player who doesn't know how to do a left-handed layup. So you're always like, okay, how do we improve? And we've struggled in Caldwell with our reading scores, right? And how do we improve this? We had so many children starting school. If we were using our state testing, 18%, based on that test, we're coming ready for kinder, right? So we're competing with districts around us that are at 45%. Like, okay, so we have to have a game plan. We have to have a feeder program. Well, what's a feeder program for kindergarten? And then the kindergarten is a feeder program for your second. Oh, sorry about that. Your
It's okay.
second,
Wave
third
your
grade.
arms.
I
Excited.
will. I'm embarrassed.
Wave the hands.
So that's why the preschool, I went to an AASA national conference and walked in on a conversation about early learning. And I have been totally, what do I want to say, convinced this is the feeder program that's needed. If we're going to improve graduation rates, then let's talk about where we start.
The amount of time you spend on just trying to get students caught up, right? But
Right.
then your classrooms are delivering instruction here, but your students need instruction here. So now you're needing to bridge this gap, and the amount of time, money, and energy to close that versus, I love your perspective, both of you. It's like, why? Why don't we just not let him get behind? Why not just let our learners not be behind in the first place?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I'm going to stand up. I'm going to excuse myself.
Not a problem.
Go ahead and do it.
So hey, the next question is that we've talked about on the early learning cohort quite a bit is early learning. We talked about early learning, but really, how do you define early learning? It's interesting because I'd just like to hear there's different perspectives when it comes to early learning and what our focus is for early learning. How do you define it, Sharon?
So I think for me, and it's changed because I used to think it's like, what do you used to think and now you think? I
Right.
used to think, pre-K. Like I used to think the institutional of school, pre-K through 3. But since joining AASA early learning cohort, reading research and just talking to a lot of practitioners, it's birth to grade 3 for me. It's the skills, concepts, all the learning that happens in that frame, age frame from birth to grade 3 for me.
Yeah.
That's a plethora of things that
Yeah. Shailene, how about you?
Yeah, I'm Sharon. We are of one mindset, even though
I know.
at different ends of the United States. But I thought it was that, 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
Developmental preschool. Okay, 3-year-olds will go 3. And then through our association with AASA Early Learning and in meeting practitioners and pediatricians, right? It's the birth to 8.
Mhm.
And I will say big influencer for me through AASA has been Ellen Galinsky.
Yes.
Executive functioning. Like,
Yes.
oh, our children need those opportunities to develop those skills. And
All right. Admin
there you go. Sorry.
was
That was mine.
Oh, yeah,
No,
that's
great.
wonderful. Chris, go
All
ahead
right.
and talk about Ellen Linsky and the Redefining Ready cohort. It's amazing how it all
Our
comes.
admin team was Mind in the Making all summer. And then we went to a breakthrough year. So when you said it, I'm sorry, I got too excited and then I started interjecting like, oh my goodness.
Well, I was so I might be a little bit of a what's it called, a groupie.
Starstruck, right?
Starstruck, yeah.
It was just being at the start. I'm not an I started at middle school. I taught. I was a principal at middle school, but then to see the benefit, how that will improve the middle school experience. When children are able to we do more than just teach reading. Right? We know that our teachers impact kids in so many ways, in how they feel about themselves, their ability to take perspective. The early learning cohort, I'm like, it is mind blowing. It's so much bigger than what I came to the group with.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you both said. That walking in, you think about, all right, K-12 is kind of my focus. That's how we're funded. That's my responsibility. And then just seeing what the possibilities are if you expand your thinking. Instead of being just a school leader, you're really an educational and a community leader. And you're convening all the other agencies that are helping families in your community and coming together to help to build that collective impact in your community. It's amazing. So really, it's prenatal, right? Through,
Yeah.
and we focus on grade 3 because we know that that's a benchmark, that if students are reading proficiently by grade 3, then they're more likely to graduate from high school. And so that P3 is a real focus. But all the things that we can do in our communities to support children and families before they even enter our school doors, there's so much that we can do. And we know that the return on investment for that is the highest there is in education. Kind of leads to the next question. How has the AASA early learning cohort impacted your work in your school district?
So I'll jump in, and before becoming a superintendent, I was assistant superintendent for many years in the state of Delaware. And in that school district, we had standalone pre-KK buildings. So we had pre-KK in a separate building, and then it jumped from 1 through 5 for our elementary schools. And so because I was in the elementary school as a principal, that was my focus. Elementary, I really didn't pay much attention to the pre-KK buildings. I knew they fed into my school, but it was almost like once they got to my doorstep, that's when I really paid attention. So then fast forward, I joined the early learning cohort, and that's when Dr. Eddie Manuzek, and I'm probably butchering his last name, was doing his early learning assessment. And so I took the questionnaire that he was just drafting. I was part of the cohort, and I took it to my superintendent, and it had all these questions to ask. Our task was to go back to our districts and to go to the superintendent and give them this questionnaire about early learning. And then I gave it to all the principals in the district about early learning. And so what I found out was that people that weren't in that pre-KK building knew nothing about, what was going on, what was needed. And so it was almost a wake-up call for me then to say, okay, let's start with the questionnaire. What we don't know, let's find out. And let's find out what that means for us in the elementary school, us in the middle school, those in the high school, and beyond. And so it was that wake-up call that I then said, okay, this is the advocacy work that needs to take place so that when you walk into a district, it's not just your high school as the flagship schools, right? It's starting really early and making sure every adult in the district knows what's going on at the very beginning of our learning in the school district. And so for me, that was a huge impact. So from then on, and now in the superintendent, I can have a lot of decision making, look at our funding, talk to, people in the community, the politicians, to shine the light on early learning now.
Kind of brings Shalene's point full circle on, you're not going to have a varsity basketball team unless you have an ability to, teach, coach some layups. Everybody looks at the high school as a flagship, but you're saying, and it's just kind of a fact. Everybody's looking at your high school, but without that progress and progression, and let's really put the real work and the real excitement that's going to make this happen. This is going to happen organically if these pieces are in place. And I just love how you clarify, communicate, and really both of you just put a pin in that point.
Mm-hmm.
Sharon, I like how you referenced the work with Eddie, Dr. Edward, one of the co-leaders of the cohort. So Eddie had done about assessing where we're at, and even just the knowledge of what's your investment in early learning and having that knowledge. It reminds me of the ASA Early Childhood and Learning Toolkit that Eddie helped to lead. And
exactly.
Develop that, all these partners from across the nation. And that's the seventh strategy. There's 7 strategies, and the 7th one is the assessment tools. And since we are kind of referencing that, I just pulled it up. It's available on the website for free. It's go to ASA Early Learning Kit. You can find it easily. So those 7 strategies are: promote equity from the start, improve alignment and transitions, establish partnerships with the early childhood education community, engage families and communities early, support strong executive function and social emotional learning, provide ongoing professional development for early educators. So that's both community and within the school system, because we say P3, that's kinder, first, second, and third. So there's got to be that alignment there. And then finally, that strategy 7 is self-assessment tools for district-wide early childhood education. So that's a really good tool. Shalene, how about you? How's the early learning cohort impacted your work in Caldwell?
Well, one, it gives me hope. Can I just say that? So early learning, like kindergarten's not required in the state of Idaho. right? That's not it. And we don't offer preschool through the school systems. So what the cohort has done, it's broadened my vision of how to bring in community partners. Right? We knew we could reach out to them, and they're all very different in their approach. But we reached out to Head Start, and then I met Dr. Bergeron. I'm like, oh, this is not as far away as we can bring Head Start in. We can at least reach out, which we did. And we made space in our buildings for Head Start preschool for preschool for our community. And many of those children will be our children, right? But we have this handshake agreement. Then we reached out, we had an agreement with the YMCA. We provide space for the YMCA preschool program. So we don't have a state level support for preschool, but we have community support. And I feel like that's where I've benefited most, is to go to different communities or meet individuals from states who may be similar to Idaho, where that's just not a requirement, and gather ideas from them. So right now we are able to, was introduced to the Idaho Association for the Education of Young Children, right? I didn't even really know about that. And writing grants, bringing in funding so that we can have community liaisons to bring us together, the professional development, heightening that for all of our early learner teachers.
Mhm.
Yeah, I hope I just said that right.
Yeah.
But we've been also able to reach out to our community preschool programs and provide professional development for them, right? We use the Mind in the Making as a conversation with these preschool providers actually in Canyon County, which is the county where we reside. We gleaned ideas from our friends in Georgia, right? And we wrote a grant. We have a grant now for Play to Learn, which those are ideas that we are just picking from people to say, how can we bring families and children in, even though the state is not required and there's really no state support. The other thing is, I feel like I have a better voice. So I was at a state meeting with the state superintendents from the region were all listening, and what can we do to support schools? And I said, early learning, preschool, and I started just to yap a way of how important it is, brain development, which I had, we talked about. So I felt empowered to say it, and I knew I was right in what I was saying. And it was very nice. In the back, all of a sudden I hear all these clicks from other superintendents. So that's the power of AASA early learning for me.
That's great. You mentioned Dr. Bergeron. So that's Dr. Deborah Bergeron, former director of Head Start for the nation. She's one of the co-leaders for the cohort. So great to have such access to these thought leaders from across the nation. The other thing you talked about, so you're opening the schools and having these agencies, if you have some extra space in the school, they're able to use a classroom and run preschool funded through their funding sources. And that's a real true partnership. So the kids are right there on campus and they don't have to worry about transitions and such. Is that right?
Right. And that our agreement is that they will prioritize Caldwell kids.
Right.
So the Head Start, it's those students from Caldwell will qualify first for a place in that classroom. The YMCA has agreed a place in the classroom, and then they'll fill it they'll fill their classroom, but Caldwell gets priority because of our partnership.
Yeah. We do the same thing. We have community agencies that we partner with, and I've heard from them. So they partner with other school districts too. And they said that in our school district, they just feel so welcome and part of the team. So our principals do such a nice job of having those staff members from the other agencies. They're in the building, and the principals reach out, make them aware, hey, you can come to the potluck that we're having after. And they give them the t-shirt for the school, and we give them the t-shirt for the district, and they are part of the team because those kids are going to be in our classroom next year. If they're in the preschool classroom this year, next year they're going to be in the kindergarten classroom. They're our kids. So we just got to work together across these, kind of these silos maybe or something like that for funding, but work together because it's really in the best interest of our kids and families that we have a great welcoming environment for those kids, and then we have a seamless transition for them as they come into our school system.
Well, yeah, because Peter, that they know the school, their parents know the school.
Right.
And well, at least they know what library time is, and they know when they go to because we offered PE, right? So they go to the PE class and get a little PE and exercise. They have a layout in their mind of safety, right? At least that's our hope, is that they leave our building knowing that they're safe.
Well, there's so many creative things that are happening when it comes to early learning. There's one thing I actually know that Chris Nesmith at Elma has done with using AI, artificial intelligence, to have a really cool experiential, hands-on, not just a worksheet or something like that, but this learning for the young children in the community. Chris, you have to share what.
Well, it's got a lot of building. I was
Here.
with Peter. Peter and I were in the same district for 8 years. I always got to remind you, let career college readiness work. So
You got to get a little closer to the mic there, my friend.
we were doing the badge book work while we were in West Valley Yakima. So I was able to steal all of Peter's work. So Peter has just So we launched badge books here, and then from our badge books, we were going through some of our federal COVID fund relief funds, and we're like, oh man, we've got some that we got to spend. So we had this partnership with our community, our city, the city hall, the Parks and Rec department from the city, and the hospital, and we're looking at where do our most in need learners not receiving early learning services? Where are the students not, like the parents aren't taking the time to fill out Head Start, no matter how much we push, or the parents are staying home because they don't have transportation. And we started installing walking trails. So we had our first mile of walking trails installed. So that's our sight word trail. So we have in English on one side, Spanish on the other. You can't read it at all. And we
That's
built
okay.
a mile of walking trails,
Oh my gosh.
learning activities across for the students. So that's the sight word trail. Then that kind of lays out the sight word trail, and then that green part is removable. So that's where Peter says we have we can mass manufacture. So when we're changing out which standards we want to align to on our badge books. So we did this part.
Don't you have accounting where they go up the steps and
Oh, we have logs, little sawed-off logs that have numbers, and they can jump from log to log to log and count the numbers and add them up. So we have counting one. We have one where they have to jump how far they can jump, and they have to measure their jump. And we have it painted on the sidewalk with their sign. We have one where they got to run down. That's on the sidewalk. They got to run across
Nice.
on the sidewalk.
I'm gonna borrow those ideas.
Alma Eagle and
Okay, here's the logs. There's the logs. See the logs with the numbers?
Nice. Yeah.
Such cool stuff. So hey, next question is, what advice do you have for superintendents on how to improve early learning in their community? So what are some first steps that you might take if you're a superintendent listening to this podcast? What do you suggest? Sharon, why don't you go first?
I would say involve the community in the early learning. And so almost spin it backwards. And I would say bring in your chamber, bring in your the economic, business roundtables, because what I've been talking about lately, and I got the idea from another superintendent who was joining the early learning cohort, one of our monthly meetings. She talked about the economic impact. And so being able to go straight to your business people to pitch the advocacy work that you're doing, what's needed, the stats, the importance of early learning in a district. And so I would say that's the first thing: set up the meeting, get the people around the table and lay everything out. What are the facts? What do you need? And then try to frame out kind of a game plan for moving forward.
Sounds good. Shalene, how about you?
I was saying,
with Peter. I'm sorry. I was just going to reflect on that. But I was just going to say, it's so impressive when you talk, right? And we co-lead Redefining Ready, how identical the early learning partnerships is to our career and college readiness. Understand the chamber, who are our employers now, right? But it's different. So the work when we're having superintendents meet on Redefining Ready, it's almost like the exact same content, but we're talking about which direction the students are going and what level of partnership we're doing.
Yeah, and I guess I'm going to piggyback too then. because the amazing thing is like you're building this coalition for early learning and you're building a coalition for post-secondary and workforce development, and that actually can connect where we have our high school kids are getting college credit for early childhood education and doing a practicum in early learning classrooms, both in the community and in our primary classrooms in West Valley. And then they're on a pathway for workforce development. And then there's this amazing work that came out of the cohort where Dr. Summer Schultz from
That's who I talked with. Yep, that's who I talked
South
with.
Dakota has been able to work with National University. So you don't even need like 30 kids for a class. They can do it independently and still get the CDA, the Child Development Associate, as an initial certificate and get on a pathway for a bachelor's degree. It's just amazing. So we have this workforce development that can come back and be the workforce for early learning. It's amazing.
I'm so sorry, Shalene.
Let's not leave out Shalene here. It's Shalene, like recommendation to the superintendent. How do you get started on all this?
I say, put aside your pride. That like in Idaho, the big emphasis has been on secondary at high school. You know, the advanced opportunity funding, every high school student has $4,625 to spend on dual credit or CTE certifications, etc. There's a big emphasis here, and we take pride in those flagship schools, which we do, absolutely we do. But I think you have to put aside that and realize that this flagship is only going to be a flagship for your community if you have the support birth all the way through. But that those years, that birth to 8 and the brain development, I don't know a lot about it, but there are people out there who do. I put aside my pride and I took an opportunity to learn from somebody who absolutely knows more than I do on this. And I'll defer to them, but I just think you have to have the realization that to have the varsity team, you have to have kids building skills all the way, right?
Yeah,
and we're talking and parents support. And you know how you poke parents in, they love their littles. And that play to learn, we are packed. How do we offer 2 sessions of this?
Sweet.
Parents are signing up and like on a waiting list. That's impressive.
That's great. Shalene, why don't you describe play to learn and play and learn? What's it look like in Caldwell?
Oh, thank you. Well, so we have a classroom set up for littles, birth, and we have birth, like littles in strollers, and then littles. They come and the parents have been given instruction that they are to be there to play. And so they have little centers set up that are really kid friendly. We do have sparkles all over the floor. There are things spilled, but it is that parents, we have some of our preschool paraprofessionals that are in our developmental preschool will come over on and help with the group supporting the instructor, and they don't talk necessarily unless they see a parent with a cell phone or something that's distracting. Ask them to put it away. The whole point is you're playing and learning to play with your children, and it actually just does your heart good to see that. And there are parents that they're so supportive, and it is such a joy. And it might be a first time a dad, which we have a dad who comes pretty regular, is sitting down and doing sparkly colors with his 2 and 3-year-old, right?
I love that. I mean, my wife and I, we both have 2 master's degrees. We met, my wife had all brothers and all male cousins. And I just remember like having this new child that, 2 master's degrees in our home, and you still have no idea what to do with this person. And we kind of forget about that. I think like together in our house, we probably had more tools than the average, family. Right. And I think we forget that. And I know that I had a level of vulnerability. So I can imagine, and I had a lot of tools. So I can imagine, so I just think that's incredible on how you're skilling up parents.
And what a wonderful thing to have the school be the hub where you're bringing the families in and they're able to learn from each other, and you have professionals there, they have questions, and then to have fun. It's joyful learning. The play and learn is such a wonderful thing to see. So it's wonderful. You know what? We're close to the half hour here. So I guess we got to wrap it up. But thank you, Shalene, for finishing with that play and learn, because that's such a beautiful thing. And Sharon, thank you for joining us from Maryland all the way across the country. And hey, everyone out there, the AASA Early Learning Cohort, you're more than welcome to join. We're actually going to be in Denver next week, so it's probably a little short notice there, but that's where Dr. Krista Cowers is based with the University of Colorado at Denver for the National P3 Center. So she's going to help share her expertise with us. And then in the spring, 2025, so that's April 30, May 1, 2, we're going to be in the Pittsburgh area. There's an AASA Lighthouse System for Early Learning. It's the Fox Chapel Area School District. And we have already been talking with their superintendent, Dr. Mary Catherine Welchek, and she's going to invite us in. And also there's the Fred Rogers Institute in Latrobe. So that's Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. And we've got a partnership with Greg Bear and Ryan Radzitsky. They wrote the book When You Wonder You're Learning, and all about Mr. Rogers. And so it's just going to be a great trip in the spring as well. So just appreciate.
That's a thorough promotion.
Chris, go ahead. Last word. Go ahead. Last word.
I just want to thank you both. I mean, like I said, it's the similarities for our post-secondary preparedness and our early learning. I guess if I just had to put one word on this today, just close us out, both Shalene and Sharon, if you can give us one word, what is one word that makes early learning work?
I would say it's inspirational.
Inspirational. Very good.
I'm going to go back to the word hope.
Oh,
I just think there's such a hope in our future and the joy.
well, with that,